точкой взрывного роста для отрасли e-commerce.
Pandemic became a point of growth for e-commerce. While some companies are reducing their workforce and think about survival, but e-commerce deals with other problems, with great flows of online customers. So how consumer behavior has changed, what technology should be used to improve the quality of services for clients, what business should do to overcome this business crisis situation, and how traffic will change once lockdown is lifted. These and other issues will be discussed by our speakers. E-commerce, how industry is living through this crisis.
Hi, yes, my name is Martijn Peters. I lead the retail and consumer practice for PwC in Russia and Eastern Europe. We have two speakers with us. I'll start with the lady Kэрolin Stebbiнгс, Managing Director of Code Worldwide, which is a creative marketing technology agency working for various segments, more or less hit in the COVID environment. And we have Olaf Slater, the General Manager of Saber Hospitality Divisions, which is one division of Saber Worldwide, servicing hospitality and leisure segments, quite heavily hit at the moment in the lockdown period. And I wanted to start with you, Olaf, but we'll be going between you so that you can also share your various perspectives on your segments, first with what's happening and then moving to technology. And as a very brief introduction, we are seeing in the market heavy impact, of course, from the lockdown. So e-commerce is going up. It's partly forced to go up because there's no other choice. What we're seeing in general in our research in PwC is that typically consumers expect afterwards to continue to use e-commerce and online interactions more, and that also links to stickiness of behaviors in previous crises. So I guess first question to you is, how do you see the changes that the current situation is bringing to e-commerce and hospitality specifically?
Thank you, Martin. So yeah, I couldn't agree more that we are seeing a shift to digital. Obviously, well, everybody is being forced, both the consumers, but also the companies themselves, whole industries, especially hospitality, forced to rethink what it means to be digital and rethink what hospitality and e-commerce actually means. I think there's really three pillars, if you will, that I think are going to be relevant. One is authenticity. How can you create a sense of authenticity, and what is authenticity? And then authentication, knowing who, what, when, where, why, recognizing intent, and then being able to engage in different ways, because now things need to be more seamless, even touchless. So understanding those intents and the interaction, and providing demonstrable proof of security, not just security of data, but also obviously the whole health aspect. Now, people will travel. There's no two ways about that. Travel, it's in our DNA, it's in our genes. We are going to want to travel. But I think the expectations are changing for hospitality, and what hospitality actually means, and what you can or can't do, and what people will want to do. One thing is clear: people are craving to get out, and there's many different ways that people will be able to get out at different phases. Some countries like the UK have sort of further locked themselves down by introducing a 2-week incubation, if you will, lock you away and wait for 2 weeks if you do travel to the country. So we're going to see a shift towards more domestic travel. We're also going to see a lot of people, because they've not only been hit psychologically, but also financially, not being able to actually travel abroad. So they are not only going to focus on traveling domestically, but maybe even doing what's called the staycation. So for the hospitality industry, thinking about how to address those new consumer areas, those new potential people, buyers that you might have not addressed before, and what can you offer them in terms of services or products while they're staying at home or wanting to get out of their home, but experience something in and around the vicinity of where they live. So focusing on locals as well. I think future experiences need to deliver on higher expectations and an actual return on the investment for the guests themselves. So what is it that I'm actually going to get out of this? I want to experience something, but this isn't something that is just sort of a quick consume and go away. It's something that needs to be impactful and meaningful to me. We're seeing from the operational perspective quite a shift in what is required. And I mentioned this demonstrable sort of security thing where people are going to expect you as a hospitality industry participant, be it F&B, a restaurant or a hotel, to be not only saying that you're doing all these things to keep them safe and secure, but actually demonstrating them. That could be as simple as a UV sanitizing device at the front desk where people can sanitize their phones, all the way through to giving them the security of being touchless as possible. So check in on your mobile phone, keyless entry to your door, more security around food delivery, etc. But we're also seeing a huge shift towards digital and having to rethink what it means to operate in a new paradigm of e-commerce and instant gratification. So really this shift towards that. So digital marketing, more investments in marketing communications, while hotels need to take highly visible and convincing steps to reassure, like I said, hygiene, promoting those measures and protocols, etc.
Very good. Thanks, Olaf. And we'll talk more about the role of technology in this, but first wanted to go to Caroline. And as Caroline works in this marketing technology space, but also with different segments of the consumer industries. Caroline, can you give us your perspective of how you see consumer behavior changing in other segments of the retail and consumer space?
Yes, thank you, Martin. And thank you for allowing me to join the conversation today. Olaf suggested a couple of things there from a security perspective, how our experience is going to be different. And I think for me, from a consumer perspective, where behavior is, trust is key. Trust is going to be paramount in everything any brand does. And it's going to be very much around the strong driver of what that brand stands for. What are their ethics? What does that say about me and my lifestyle? And what and who invests in those brands? It's going to be a much deeper conversation. I think sustainability, Olaf mentioned being authentic. I think it's brand authenticity that's really key. It's never been more important than as we come out of this, what I'm starting to think of as almost like the never normal. People are talking about a new normal. I think it's going to be a never normal because we're constantly going to be changing. I think people are going to ask more about the provenance of an experience that they have or a brand that they work with. There's been lots of chatter online around the planet being able to breathe. So how do we bring that, particularly say like into the hospitality environment? How do we maintain that? Could it be that the consumer behavior begs that actually we have a time of lockdown every year to allow the planet to breathe? It sounds really strange, but given some of the positive results that have come out, I think it's really hit very personal, very deep sort of consciousness in behavior. The push to online with people self-isolating will continue to prevail afterwards. Although, as Olaf says, people are desperate to get out, what does that do to the retail bricks and mortar? Do we eventually see showrooms? You know, 10, 15 years ago, we talked about the retail environment just being a showroom environment where you could go touch, feel, still explore your senses, but then you went back into your home and bought online. There'll be a change in purchase behavior. I was looking at some stats the other day that said in the UK, particularly, during lockdown, there was an increase in leisure wear and cosmetics. So people wanted to be comfortable while they were doing all these video calls, but they also wanted to give themselves a little bit of a pampering and doing that home spa type situation because they still wanted to improve their self-esteem. I found that quite interesting. Alongside a peak of electronic items where potentially doing a lot of homeschooling, you needed a laptop for your children. as well. So I think that whole consumer behavior. So I suppose in short, wrapping up, it's brands have never needed to understand customer motivations ever more than they do now. And it's around those emotional, rational drivers in my mind. So any brands that were already on this journey before we went into lockdown are going to be the ones that bounce back quicker when we come out of lockdown.
Very good, thanks. I guess then the next question to both of you is also, as we were discussing beforehand, this is our first conference that is entirely virtual, and we still need to engage with each other. Now, this will be the same for the interaction between companies and their clients more and more. So what's the role of technology into ensuring this customer experience and customer engagement, and how do you see kind of some best practices here that need to be done in your respective segments? And maybe all of you can start, and then we'll switch back to Caroline again.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you. So, and I'd like to start this section with something that that Caroline mentioned, sustainability. We had an interesting approach, let's call it that. One of the largest European hotel chains called NH, or NH, Spanish one, as they say. They, a couple of years ago, came out with a promo ad, a TV ad. It was only about 15 or 20 seconds long. And it was a high-speed journey of a customer using all of their new technologies. Mobile check-in, keyless door entry, mobile checkout. So really, you know, the high-speed camera, person walked in, bypassed the desk, you know, did their stuff, stayed, left, gone. Now, they didn't do this. This whole initiative wasn't done because they wanted to embrace digital. This was all about sustainability. And this was about proving to their consumers who thought sustainability was relevant, their travelers, that they were able to save this many tons of CO2 and paper, et cetera. So a sustainability drive helped them adopt these digital technologies that have now put them on the forefront of brands that are going to offer what those consumers actually need. So to your question, how consumer engagement is changing with new technologies, I think it's really about the hospitality industry, especially as they think about e-commerce and engaging through digital, but also making this experience as personal and human as possible, is that we're going to need to rethink what is a product, what is content. Like you said, we're doing video chats for the first time. That's going to become very prevalent and relevant. We're going to not need to only define the product of hospitality as a rate attached to a room for a certain period of time. It could be the deliver my picnic to me in the park because I live close to your hotel and I want to purchase something from you because I can't afford to go on holiday, but I'd really love to pamper myself and my family while, you know, staying 2 meters from everybody. So hospitality and F&B restaurants need to rethink who their guests could be, what their experience, what they're going to be craving for, and how to deliver that. So platform solutions, technology providers that offer solutions that go end to end and can manage that new type of content, both from a sort of a shopping intent, real-time creation of product and pricing and distribution, but also then authentication. Who is it purchasing, fulfilling, all of that? That's something that's really going to be changing, and where new technologies or where the adoption of some sort of industry-leading technology providers is going to be relevant. I think the dynamic engagement and personalization and so-called feedback loops is also going to require new systems and new thinking. Platform I mentioned already, but who is the source of record? You know, where is this information going to be held? And CRM systems, customer relationship management systems, loyalty-like programs are going to be ever more important, because now it's not only about knowing and providing and creating that trust, but also engaging with regularly, but also making sure that you're capturing all of these new data points from consumers, these digital travel, IDs that you're going to need to prove that you've had all your vaccinations and whatnot as well. And then as we go through all of that, this whole contactless check-in, having again those demonstrable actions that make them feel comfortable while providing more efficiency, less cost in favor of the guests.
Mm-hmm. Very, very good. And I think the last point that you mentioned come close to where Caroline's experience from the marketing technology is. So Caroline, how do you see this? How do you engage with your consumers in the best possible way via technology in this new environment?
Well, it's using all the sort of infrastructure pieces that Olaf was talking about and making sure that you've got those in place. But for me, when I talk about technology and the importance of what you can leverage, I really think AI. It's the time for AI, and that really embraces everything, whether that's machine learning, deep learning, creative content optimization, or automation. They, for me, all come under that whole AI category. And that's what's really going to make the difference. 5 years ago, people were asking about what is the definition of AI. Now, I think, is the time for it to really have that shift in business change. And it can be used in a much more quicker, iterative way. People are now saying, where's the value from AI? I can't wait 5 years. I need to have it now.
Yeah.
And I need to take my business with me, and I need to take my people, more importantly, my culture needs to change with it. It can't just be this group of 30 guys sitting in a dark room working out the latest algorithm. It's got to filter through the whole business. And for me, I see AI very much as in a sort of like almost like a cycle or a wave. And to start off with, it's around the focusing on responses, surviving and getting through this without too much damage. And then coming out with, we talked before we came online about reimagining what are the new things. A bit like Olaf was saying about what's the new experience. I love the deliver the picnic to me in my park because I can't actually go away. It's thinking, if you like, the unthinkable. What's the new? That's our role to say. I often say to people, it would be great if we could return to our childlike selves, because that's when the world was full of every single possibility. Because you'd say why or why not or how, rather than, well, the way we do it is this way. And I think that's one thing that this has shown me. And I think AI will be able to allow that in all its different ways. It's quick, it's iterative, but you've got to empower people. It's got to be data-centric, data-driven, but everybody throughout a company has got to be able to make those decisions based on data.
I like that. And Martin, if you don't mind, if I could add to that, I think when I say retail in relation to the hospitality industry, what I don't mean is selling, T-shirts with your hotel logo or coffee cups or the teddy bear from the bed, beside the bed. What we're talking about when we think about retailing is what the industry needs to rethink and redo and have technology to enable that, so that AI can come along and consume those individual bits and pieces in real time using recommendation engines to bring supply and demand together. Because there is not going to be that standard, I want to go for 2 weeks to Spain from the 1st of July and I have 2 adults, 2 children, right? That's not what it's going to be about anymore. It's going to be about very different things. So I totally agree with AI, but there is something that needs to shift. And that's sort of where I was coming from with the redefinition, or the ability to redefine what actually a product is and what a product is, both from a supply side, but also from a demand side. And really that, price is not going to drive higher demand. If you drop your price, it's not going to help. It's all about inclusions and not reductions. So what can you do to add more of what is relevant to the customer at that moment in time when they're searching for something, to convince them that this is exactly what they've been looking for, and they never knew that this is what they've been looking for. And not only is it the cheap, no, I can afford it. So it's valuable to me. This is what I want. I strive for that. And I think we're coming out of lockdown. There's such a pent-up demand for those kind of things.
That's an interesting one about the... Sorry, go ahead, Caroline.
I was just saying, I think it isn't that we have to have new things. It's about repackaging those things.
Yeah.
But how, you mentioned inclusion instead of price, which I think is an interesting one, because there was originally this concern that consumers only focus on the lowest price in e-commerce. Well, it's very much, if you see to more sophisticated consumers, about service and other elements. But how do you both see what will drive winners in the market. For example, in comparable segments, and taking the Russian example, we have two large online food delivery companies that are obviously very, very busy at the moment. How do they differentiate? How would they need to use both technology in the last mile to make sure they have a better positioning than their competitor? I guess the whole audience that we have today will be ordering from them, as I do about 7 times per week. So what's your view on this? What are the winning elements in that kind of competition?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, but particularly if you take home delivery, because we have more than one key supermarket, let's say, delivering that. I feel that if we go back in time, I think you said before we started about how you get an accelerator of change when you have exceptional things that happen, be it a number of different economic things like the crash in 2008. It quite often elicits quite different changes. And what's happened here is that it's not about who wins over somebody else. It's about what part do you play in the consumer's world. So a bit sort of like Olaf was saying, I love the picnic thing. I'm going to hold on to the picnic thing. Is that if I'm going to do the picnic, I'm going to go to the high-end supermarket and do my online shopping. If I'm going to do the heavy consumables of washing powder and toilet rolls, I'm going to do that from the more discount one that delivers it, because at the end of the day, I want best value for the money that I have got. And that doesn't mean me putting all of my GBP in one brand. And that definitely came through when we had austerity. I don't think we've ever come out of that change in mindset of, I want best value, but I also want to treat myself sometimes. So that's when I go to a different type of brand and a different type of engagement and experience.
I understand that. I think just to explain what I meant with the online delivery, it's from the restaurants. So it's the combination of the competitors are really having a similar offering because they're connected to the same restaurant. So and they don't have their separate last mile to deliver it by courier. Just taking that element with a similar offering, where is then, in your view, the winning proposition of where can you differentiate?
So maybe an idea from what we're envisioning with the hospitality industry, where a lot of our customers are pushing us to evolve to. The Accor announcement is obviously evidence of that. Is that we see a strong demand for cross-industry relationships. You think about the last mile. This picnic was maybe a good example to pick up on here. If one of those two restaurant delivery providers, and they both probably have CRM systems and loyalty, and they know what you've ordered and they can make recommendations, they need to broaden their scope and capabilities. Why wouldn't they partner with hotels, for example, restaurants and hotels that can actually do different things, with actual grocery stores that can say, you seem to love Chinese and you love this dish. Instead of buying prefabricated or pre-cooked food from the restaurant, we will send you the ingredients and a recipe to cook it at home, or go even further, having in-room or in-home experiences. We're going to offer you, through your food delivery, the same meal, but cooked in your private kitchen area of your 2-day stay at the hotel, which is 2 blocks down the road from you. So the collaboration around experiences, gleaning knowledge from other industries about what makes people tick, and broadening your capabilities to deliver those experiences by partnering cross-industry. That's what we think retailing is about, and where the industries need to go.
Mm-hmm. Just very picking good. Up on that, actually, there's and I wish I could remember where it is, but I read recently about a restaurant environment where it was a collaboration, and you would pitch up, maybe you and 3 of your friends, and you'd sit at a table, but then everything was done online, and one of you might want Chinese, and one of you might want Indian, and one of you might just want a salad, but you all want different drinks, and it all goes into the app, and then each of the different vendors around this pop-up would then bring you those things. And I really love that idea, because otherwise it's like whoever speaks loudest is we're going to the Indian this Friday night, rather than we can go somewhere and you can have exactly what you want, but you've still got that community.
That's great examples, both. Thank you very much. I want to give the audience the chance to ask questions to the two of you. So that can be done via the Zoom group chat. I haven't seen questions yet, so you can start doing this. And while waiting for the questions, let me ask the next one to you in the meantime. Given that this is a startup audience partly, what do both of you think are relevant technologies for startups to play at the moment and to have a good proposition for the customer base around e-commerce?
Kэрolin, do you mind if I start?
Please go ahead.
So I think we've talked about security and safety and whatnot. So I think there's a theme going on that is bringing security and safety into the psychology of different industries. So that's a big area. We're seeing obviously time-sensitive digital transformation going on, but CRM, loyalty systems, messaging systems, instant messaging systems connected to CRM and retailing capabilities. Resilience from things like this. So cloudification, platformification, the ability to be resilient against these kind of downs and downturns from a business model perspective, less financial risk. And I think very much hospitality and travel is something. If you look at Generation Z, the Venn diagram of what they love. It's always been technology, food and beverage, experiences, and travel. But the biggest bubble of those three is definitely travel. And we're seeing Generation Z, which is going to be, I think, in 2022, the biggest consuming group out there, is going to put a lot of emphasis on travel.
Very good. Kэрolin, you have a recommendation?
No, I agree with the first half of what Olaf was saying. I mean, regardless of the sector you're in, I think it is all about how do you make sure that you can move in an agile and fast way, and platformification, cloudification, they're all the sorts of things that allow you to do it as if you like, a pay-as-you-go model. If you're going to be a startup, you don't want heavy legacy stuff.
If we look at the companies who have outperformed the market in this period of disruption that we've seen, companies like Amazon, obviously PayPal, Netflix, Peloton, Shopify, Zoom, anywhere from 30% up to about 155% increase in share value, stock performance. Those are the ones who, at the right time, had the right business model, the right technology and capabilities. And it's not just about the sharing economy and low cost and experiential travel. That's gone. That's old hat. That's what's been happening in the past 10 years with the Airbnbs, the low cost carriers, the growth of these niche brands, the so-called Hygge, and the YOLO and FOMO. I think it's very much about the technology combining with those experiences. That's what it's about. And like we said, the authenticity and security.
And I guess, let's not forget then also about core execution, because what we didn't discuss, but one of the challenges that a lot of players at the moment face is how to just manage the supply chain in the right way, and how to deal with the new demand patterns and to plan properly for this.
Yeah, and that's something, an interesting point there. If there's no questions coming in yet, maybe do pick up on that. So supply chain in hospitality, there's a very, very legacy sort of complex, system landscape of different systems that need to talk to each other in order to make travel happen, not only to create offers and make them available in different channels, but to actually fulfill the purchase and the payment, and then actually, making that experience available on property in the hotel. And that's what I was talking about, platformization. We need to move, or the industry is ripe for a platform approach that doesn't have to rely on the lowest common denominator of APIs and whatnot, but you have a single source of record and inventory. Yeah.
Very good. So Kэрolin, maybe just a question. You also mentioned you work with the automotive industry quite a bit. So how do you see them coming out of this lockdown, and how is that going to to change on this heavy purchase.
I think it's quite interesting because I think there's two dynamics there. One is actually if there was any retail environment where you could have spatial distance, it's cars, because you don't ever have 200 people turn up at a car dealership. So spatial distancing, I think that's fine. I think what is different as we come out of this for automotive is how far ahead are those brands from environmentally friendly cars? How far ahead are those brands when it comes to mobility? If you're talking about, you know, a car brand that offers me a lease that allows me to have a different car at the weekend because I'm going away with my kids and we're going surfing, to the one that I need in the week, which is the one that gets me to and from my commute, where I need something small and nippy, that's, I think, something that will sort the wheat from the chaff. So those that are further ahead will be the ones that were thinking about these things beforehand, are able to bring them to market quickly as we come out. I do not think there is such a big market so much for big purchases. People aren't quite sure about where their jobs are at the moment. Made them think, I can, you know, as much as I can work remotely, I don't actually have to get in the car every day. So where's the flexibility, which is the different way about thinking about how do I still have access to a car without it sitting on my drive every day?
Yeah, very good. I think we need to round up. So first of all, I want to thank both of you for your very active participation and sharing your diverse experience. One thing that I took away from this is, as we all said, on the one hand, it's not new. It's just an acceleration of trends that were already happening, but it's completely speeding up. It will impact it will make certain factors more important. User trust is increasing, expectations are changing faster, and the roles of technology need to further support in this acceleration to make consumer companies and retailers better interact with their clients around sustainability as a topic, for example, and by leveraging artificial intelligence more than ever to also have this one-on-one interaction and to get to the right consumer engagement. So it will be interesting times ahead of us, I think, and more technology needed for the retail and consumer industry. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you,
Caroline.
Olaf.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.